Welcome back to the All Things ITSM Global Podcast. I'm Kirsty McGowan. I'm here with Patrick Bolger.
Hello, Kirsty again.
And Carlos Casanova.
Hello, Kirsty.
And we have now joining us Ivan McFarlane from ServiceNow. You were
Apparently
yes.
Allegedly.
Now,
Allegedly,
right now.
yes. So how are you enjoying Vegas this time, Ivan? I'm sure you've been here many times before.
Well, Vegas is the same as it always is, which I still haven't got past the first description I was given of Vegas when I got here. Was it's like Blackpool on steroids. It still seems a pretty good description of it.
Yes.
Nothing's quite human size, but the conference is great.
Yeah.
And at least I get some exercise walking to my hotel.
Oh, that's right. You're
My
down the
Fitbit's
road.
been going crazy. So if I'm back home, there's no way I'm going to record that number of steps in a day. I think the other day I did something like 24,000 steps.
And that was just to your room.
If I'd have been in one direction, I could have walked home. You know?
Walking on water again.
Yeah.
Matter of everyday routine.
So you've been standing there on the ServiceNow stand?
I've been on the stand, which
Yeah.
was the busiest stand I remember being on.
Yeah.
And as the expo is massively busy.
Yes.
It makes a pleasant change from standing around in empty ones.
Yeah.
And just done my presentation, which is
Oh, yeah.
nice.
How did
An
that
hour.
go?
Well, it's always okay from my side.
Nobody left this time?
I heard it was basic.
2 or 3 people. It was very, very basic, yeah. I think it went okay.
So what were you talking about today, Ivan?
It was called the New Basics, but actually half of it was about the old basics, and then trying to contrast things to them. Just making the point that one of the things technology has allowed us to do is to actually focus on service management.
Yeah.
Much
Novel
more than we used
concept.
to. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that service management and dealing with customers itself has actually become the basic, whereas before it was sort of a level or 2 up for many organisations. So that's really the key message I wanted to get across, that this is now basics.
Yep. There's something you often say that I like is that you were in service management a long time before you were in IT.
Yeah, I got into IT by accident. They wanted a warehousing expert when they decided to computerise the stores, and they brought me in to do that and to point out things to the IT people. They would come down. They came down from Liverpool, great and good IT folks, and then they looked around and they came up with this wonderful solution. And my job was basically to look at their solution and say, it's really clever, it's very inventive, it won't work.
I see you make a lot of friends that way.
Oh yeah. Somehow no, I don't know what.
So I see you've been joining the discussion on the new ITIL practitioner qualification.
Yes.
So how do you see it?
The problem I have is that as I read it, it's actually about competence as a consultant and an improvement consultant. And I don't think ITIL is the whole story if I want to judge somebody's ability as a consultant or an improvement consultant. I don't think IT is the whole story. If I put myself in the position of a customer that wants a good a good improvement consultant to make services better, I want evidence that this person actually can do analysis of the service and the business requirement and can present it properly. None of that's got anything to do with ITIL. So tying a qualification that's aimed at delivering that to an ITIL book just seems to me an oxymoron.
I mean, we've had these discussions, quite a few times, all of us, and that different perspective that you bring to the table. And it was interesting listening to how you kind of got to where you're at now. They went outside of the box, brought someone in that didn't, have that experience to look at it and say, wow, that looks kind of strange. Why are we doing that way? Versus everyone that was inside, it's like, no, that's just the way it is. We've always done it that way. And I think that's where most of us that, have those conversations, we have experiences outside of these areas, and we just scratch our head and we say, why are we doing that? It doesn't make any sense. I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't know what the answer is, but I know that this isn't it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
at least we're going to start that conversation and move that forward.
It's really important to stop going in the wrong direction. And it's something that we do way too often. It's an engineering trait, it's not just an IT thing.
Yeah.
But it's a very valuable thing to say, no, don't go there.
Right.
Because otherwise you waste time and effort.
Yeah.
Well, I tell people all the time, say, if you're going to go there, do it very fast as you possibly can. Fail fast.
Yes.
You'll save time. You'll save money, and then you can try again and do it the right way.
Yeah.
But 3 years of going in the wrong direction, and then not getting there is just
Yeah,
crazy.
I mean, people seem to think, I've been going this direction for so long, it's going to cost me way too much to turn around and go back the other way.
And cutting your losses.
Yeah.
And it's not even as if it needs to be a mistake. Years back, I was, last time I was in New Zealand, I went to see Air New Zealand and was talking to them. And they said, yeah, we're in a funny situation because we're putting this new system about fuel controls and fuel purchases. And it was the right thing to do 2 years ago when we started. But now fuel prices have gone up by a factor of 6. It's now the wrong thing to do, but nobody's got the courage to stop it. And it's not that there's anybody to blame, but it was now the wrong thing to do,
the
and having
world
the courage to
changed
stop.
around it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, it's the same principle. There's a thing going on in the UK at the moment around diesel cars. So originally, because cars running on diesel were more economical, it was meant to be better for the environment. But now they find out that actually it's putting 4 times some kind of nitrous, something or other into the atmosphere. So, but now Paris have said that by 2020, Paris is diesel free.
Right.
So,
Well, I've just bought a new diesel car.
Yeah.
so have I. So have I.
Well, you can buy them cheap now.
I'm not going to Paris.
But no, I don't care.
They
whether,
don't want you there
I don't
anyway.
care whether having an electric car, petrol, diesel, or wind-up clockwork. I am never driving through the middle of Paris again.
No,
I've done it before.
no.
I'm not doing it again.
I was with you when you drove through Paris
Yes,
once. It was not fun.
Yeah, but that's all changed. And the UK government have now said, at the time when we made the call on diesel, it was the right thing to do. And now, subsequently, it's the wrong thing to do. So.
And it's a really good example of what happens in those circumstances. It wasn't wrong. Nobody was wrong. But the consensus is now we must find somebody to blame for it.
Yeah.
And it's a
That's it.
complete misunderstanding of what risk management is about.
No, that's exactly right. Yeah.
There was a 1 in 20 chance of it happening. Well, have you done it 20 times? Well, then it's going to go wrong, isn't it? It's not a mistake.
That's right. And I talk about risk management. I love your description of your nice, simple description of risk management.
I've been doing a lot of work on analogies and explaining what people think are ITSM processes in everyday life. And one of the ones I did was risk management. And I said, anyone who's looked out of the window in the morning, looked out the door and said, is it going to rain? Should I take an umbrella? Do I need a coat? And thought about it for a while and then made the decision, well, I don't think it's going to rain. I don't want to lug a coat around all day. If it does rain and you get wet, it doesn't mean you were wrong. It means that, it was worth the risk. So anyone who knows whether to take an umbrella with them actually understands risk management.
You're keeping it simple. And
well, I'm simple soul.
So ServiceNow, your new home.
Well,
what are you doing? What are you doing at ServiceNow?
Well, I'm going to be working on product marketing strategy. To think forward. But what as we were talking about earlier, what I'm really interested in is that the marketplace is interesting. I think the companies that used to be the new up and coming, the new kids on the block, have been successful and are becoming the establishment. And there's a responsibility that goes with that. It's a bit like, they're coming out of adolescence. And their parents are dying off.
Meant to be mature now, aren't we?
We can't act like children anymore.
Well, I don't know about that.
Well, no, I think I'm expecting some of the folks around this table not to act like children. We're shooting for the moon a bit. But no, there is an interesting...
Guilty as charged.
There is an interesting situation, I think, where some of the old big companies who were the seen thought leaders are drifting off the service management, as every company drifts in and out of various areas. So we're in a time of change. There's a gap in the
thought leadership.
There is exactly a gap, and I think it's companies like, Hornbill and Cherwell and ServiceNow and others, and it's not one company can't do it. It doesn't work.
No,
that's not thought leadership.
No.
That's putting in direction. And those companies need to, or have the opportunity to move up to become a good establishment.
But I think there's a responsibility on the vendors as well to say, oh, hold on a moment, things have changed, and no one. It's like you're blaming. You can't really blame anyone.
No.
Things have changed. Things have moved on, and if you're a responsible vendor now, you need to be putting the onus on yourself to actually change your products and not just keep with the mainstream and take a bit of a risk and actually say this is the direction we're heading in. And I think we're seeing that now.
Yes.
I think we're seeing that.
I mean, from the ServiceNow perspective, what I love about it is what we talked about already. They're looking at delivering service management, not IT service management. And, you know, as said from my background, there could be no more interesting place for me to end my twilight working years. Not that I'm counting 37 more mortgage payments today. But
37?
37.
I'll swap.
Me too.
Yeah, well, I'd swap it for being younger again. Absolutely.
That's a fair point, okay.
Fountain of youth for 37 payments.
But yeah, no, I think we're in interesting times. We might as well be interested.
I guess that question along that line, I mean, I guess what I wonder is, so we've got these organizations, newer organizations, not new, because they're, you know, they've established the thought leadership. How much of it do they want to work together to set a consistent vision for the industry where everyone will benefit, rather than I'm going to try and set a vision for me, yours trying to set a vision for you, and then the industry as a whole just sputters out of control for another year or 2 years. And that's what worries me.
I think there's a lot more. There's a lot more kind of sharing between vendors. There's a lot more kind of, you mentioned earlier, frenemies. But there's a lot more, vendors are actually talking to each other. They're collaborating on various different things. And I think there's an awful lot more of that happening now than was happening in the last kind of decade or two.
But yeah, I mean, two decades ago, well, maybe even more, when ITSMF was starting, one of the great things about ITSMF at the beginning was everybody knew that people around the table had a vested interest. It was a visible vested interest, and then that was okay. And we had people working together to grow the industry. That was good. That drifted off in the last 10 years, and we have the opportunity to get it back in a different way. We've got to work out what that way is, I think.
But I think that's what I think conferences like, you know, like this HDI conference, you know, really afford us. You know, I know most of my value that I get from these conferences, when, you know, yes, the sessions, and that's great, but it's those, you know, at the couch, at the bar kind of session where we talk about it. And there are 4 different vendors, different consulting firms or individuals, and we start kicking around these ideas, and there's nothing, you know, formal that gets put in place, but then we do kind of all go on our own way with the same vision of kind of where we want to go. And then we come back the next year and it's like, oh, you know, we kind of sputtered here, we sputtered there. And that's really where I think the energy, you know, I'd like to see more of that in a structured manner.
But I think it's foolish to expect any form of revolution at these things. I remember we did it with SM Congress, and actually, do you know what? I still stand by the principles of SM Congress. I think it was right. The principles. There's a lot of criticism about how it was done, etc. But that aside, the principles still stand. That's now been picked up in the UK. The ITSMF UK have picked that up again, and they're moving forward with another manifesto thing. So these things, even if they don't happen at the event or immediately afterwards, you see them permeate.
Yeah, you get people thinking along the same lines.
Well, you see it's all sorts of ways of life. It's the extremists, the technical term, nutters.
Technical term,
that seek the impossible. That they don't achieve it, and they get really personally frustrated. But they actually move the mainstream ever so slightly that way over. And you need. And SM Congress was never going to do what SM Congress said it was going to do. But what it's done is made people realise we can move a bit that way.
Well, it's opened the conversation. And I mean, the only thing I would kind of adjust on, like, you know, not the principles that were in there, but the concept and the drive of what we were trying to achieve. Because I know that's what people were concerned about. The, you know, again, the black and white on paper, and it's like that's not.
It's not what it's about.
That's not what it's about. You know, focus on what the general thing is. So.
Yeah, very good. Well, I guess we should move along. So
absolutely.
I thank Ivor for his time.
You're very welcome.
Our pleasure as always to chat with you.
Thank you very much.
Thank
you, Ivor.